That's the start. It's a sink. Put them both to the start.
We're using it extensively there, aren't we?
So basically, are we in a position where...
Because, I mean, we are popping up and so on, but...
Yeah.
The gaps there, is there enough in the price on that?
But I'm just thinking of...
10 to 11. That's doable. Half an hour, that's like 120 minutes. 110. So there is exactly. Well, yeah.
Why?
I mean, it's exactly. Okay. Half 11 is 2 hours. That's 120 minutes. So
Do we need to do anything to these microphones? So they're switching on remotely.
I think they're just done.
you did the waveform, you did
Give me to loiter in the background on the way here. Where's your cane? Have you ever found it?
I did find it, but I don't know if it's...
By the coffee?
You know when you get
This is where we sneak out. That might be the reason. Yes.
You might as well collect it.
Just mark or is that?
I think we'll do the go around the room and introduce each other thing.
Yeah.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I have to admit that for the last 5 minutes I've been waiting for a German colleague who I realised has been in the room, and I didn't. Yes, I did. I'm not blaming you. I just. But my point was, in my head you weren't here. And I was just about to say to Kieran, well, we're going to have to start without Michael, and then I realised that he'd been sitting in the corner for some time. My name is Mark Tutter. I'm the head of the Innovation and Society Research Unit at the Law School at the University of Central Lancashire in Preston, and I'm the coordinator of the When Law and Hate Collide projects. Very shortly I will do a little brief overview of the project, and my research associate Kieran will give a little presentation about our findings so far about hate crime legislation in Europe generally. However, before we do that, we have to do all the housekeeping stuff. So I haven't been told there's going to be a fire alarm. I also wasn't told where the fire exit is, but I'm guessing the big running man by this door here means that's a fire exit. I haven't looked out the window, so I assume that there's not a deadly drop immediately on the other side of it. But I'm assuming if there is a fire alarm, let's open that door and leg it, and hopefully we'll be fine. The coffees for the event are served in the hall inferior, or foyer inferior, which is otherwise known as the little space around the corner. If anybody wants to recharge their coffee cups before we start, there are still some coffee and pastries there. As far as the hotel is concerned, that's the main housekeeping. If anybody needs internet access, you can get it from reception. And if anyone's got any problems, technologically speaking, then do let us know and we'll do the best we can. Now, housekeeping for the project. You will notice that there are 2 cameras in the room. Our proposal is to record the presentations of the various speakers and then make them available via the project website, so that people who are not able to attend the workshops are able to engage with the themes. We will be sending around release forms and permission forms. If anybody doesn't wish to be recorded, if anybody just wishes to be recorded audioly, for example, do let us know. The technicians can turn the cameras off, make sure they don't catch you in any of the shots and so on. So they're over there at the back. Anthony and Matt. There are some housekeeping instructions which I had written down somewhere and I've now put down. Yes, but rather than me presenting them, I will hand over to Anthony. These are the 4 golden rules of how to make sure that you don't look an idiot on the video camera, specifically relating to what to do with the microphone. You'll notice that it's very nicely hidden on my person.
Basically, before the presentation, Matthew will come around and give you a clip mic. I think the first 2 we've got is it Paul and Mark and Kieran, and then Paul and Nathan. Nathan and Paul. That's the sort of you are. When you put the mic either on your belt or in your pocket, whichever is easier. You can put the cable under your shirt if possible, and just clip it onto the tie or onto the lapel. Afterwards, after your presentation, give the mic and your USB, your presentation on it, possible back to Matthew. You can put it back on YouTube, that'd be fantastic. And also be wary of cables and the cameras here to go to the toilet. That's it.
Okay. Now, the European Commission are very fussy when it comes to expenses. So, for those of you who are claiming back travel expenses from us, it's very, very important that you keep the original receipts and the original boarding pass, and that every morning we remember to get you to sign the attendance sheet. Basically, I don't know what they do if you lose the boarding pass, because I've lost them at many a European meeting, but I would like, just for once, for this to be the first European project that doesn't have to come up with excuses for how we lost all the bits of paper. So if everybody could try and remember to clip together all your original receipts. Out on the welcome desk there is a series of blue forms. If you take one of those forms away with you, it's extremely self-explanatory. I shall grab one. Looks like this. It's extremely self-explanatory. Just needs bank information and then headings and so on. And then you send it to us at the University of Central Lancashire, the address of which will be distributed by email shortly. You'll be addressing it to Beverly in the corner, who is one of my research team, and she will make sure that you get paid, hopefully within 30 days of receiving the expenses claim. So, as I say, it's all originals. Now we can get on to talking about the interesting stuff. Have I forgotten any housekeeping?
No.
No. So, this project is funded by the European Commission's Daphne grant scheme. It focuses on a number of big questions, beginning with what is hate crime? But a friend of mine asked me the other day, why do we need to bother with asking the question, what is hate crime? Aren't all crimes as bad as each other? Why is it that we need to make something different about hate crime? And I said to him, why are you asking me as if I can give you a definitive answer? I said, actually, part of the point of this project is to engage with a broad spectrum of policymakers, practitioners, academics, people from NGOs, victims of crime, to actually ask these questions in a much broader way than we felt when we were putting the project together have been happening to date. So part of the project's motivation is to bring discussions about hate crime out of small policy chambers and out of practice, but also to a wider community, which is why we'll be broadcasting a number of the presentations. It's why we'll be twittering parts of the workshop. If you are a Twitterer, the hashtag for the project, well, we're using the hashtag hate crime, which is a hashtag that's used by a lot of people to discuss the subject of hate crime. We considered having a separate workshop only stream, but actually we wanted it to appear everywhere that hate crime is being discussed on the web. A number of my team will be tweeting parts of the workshop. We do have a project website, which I'm just going to show you. Where would it have been? This is actually just a holding page because we were almost ready to launch the project website, but we want to have a news feed in the corner that gathers together all of the news articles about different hate crime issues that appear in the media, and it transpired that the way that we've done it possibly breached copyright law, so our technician is currently in discussion with some lawyers just to make sure that we get it right, so we had to go back to the holding page. But the page does give you a little introduction to what our inspiration was when we wrote the project. There's also a summary of it in your welcome packs. But the key question, the overarching aim, is to provide the European Parliament and the Commission with a working definition. We need to speak to that web guy again. With a working definition of hate crime and a consensus on policy and best practice guidelines in order to ensure that all member states of the Union offer the same legislative uncertainty across the Union. We have a problem in Europe. We may not know exactly what a hate crime is, and for that reason I brought together philosophers and psychologists and lawyers to work with me on this project. But also across the European Commission, across the European Union, I as a citizen of Europe cannot be sure what rights and protections I have in relation to hate crime in each of the different countries. So our initial point of departure in the legal team based at UCLan has been to gather together as much information as we can about the hate crime legislation across Europe. And we're beginning to build a map of what minorities, what groups are protected in which countries, bringing together as much as we can the broadest themes that we can find within the legislation to show where people are being protected, where people are unprotected. Our next step within that element of the project will be to identify then areas where there is not enough protection. To identify those vulnerable groups who we find to be excluded from hate crime legislation. To identify those areas where we find that the legislation is not necessarily being used, where we find that practitioners are aware the legislation is there but are unable or choose not to engage with it. Rather than talking too much about that, because there will be other points within the workshop where that discussion will come up, I'm just going to ask Kieran to give you a brief overview of what we've found so far in that element.
As Mark says, we've currently been undertaking a review of the current legislative position within Europe with regards to hate crime. This is going to vary a touch from a typical academic presentation. It's going to be very quick, it's going to be a broad brush overview, and at this point there's going to be no questions afterwards. Hold all your questions in, because hopefully as more presentations go through we'll be able to fill in the gaps, or you will develop more questions to build onto inspirations that may come to you whilst I'm talking. So, passports at the ready, let's have a very quick whistle stop tour. Austria, section 335 of the Penal Code protects against racism and xenophobia. From my initial scoping, I found that racism and xenophobia are largely the two, or specifically racism, is the most is the most protected of the traditional heads of discrimination through hate crime law. And what the Penal Code in Austria does allow for is the penalty enhancement element of sentencing, which is kind of typical really in hate crime legislation and the purpose of the legislation. Belgium, the Act of the 25th of February 2003, Equal Opportunities, lists a great number of protected heads from obviously sex, supposed race, colour, descent. Some interesting ones towards the bottom being birth and fortune. We need to look at some areas of intent as to what is meant by birth and fortune. How can you be discriminated on because of your birth? Is it birthright, birthplace? That's something that we really need to look into a lot more intently. And also it brings in elements, this is the first nation to bring out of philosophical belief. How do we protect it? How do we investigate hate crimes against philosophical belief? Again, Bulgaria, very similar to Austria in the fact that they protect against racism and xenophobia. And as of when I drew this off, about 6 or 8 weeks ago, there was no evidence of this ever being used to gain a conviction in Bulgaria. I think that speaks volumes, really. Cyprus, the first of the nations that have no current hate crime provision or hate crime law. Again, there's some questions, why do they feel they don't need that, or why haven't they legislated against any area of hate crime? The Czech Republic, the Czech Criminal Code protects against race, nationality, political conviction and religion. again, there tends to be a core of protected heads, but the political conviction is new. Denmark. Although there's no specific hate crime law, the Danish Criminal Code, Section 81, looks at the motives which can affect the gravity of the case. In commentary, most things seem to be, most things that are investigated through Section 81 of the Danish Criminal Code seem to be racism cases. Estonia, as Cyprus, have no current hate crime laws or provisions. Again, we need to look at the motivations why. Finland, the Finnish Criminal Code from 2003, again, strong elements of race and ethnic and national origin, well, they seem to be really at the core of what many countries in Europe are willing to legislate against in relation to hate crimes. In France, the 2003 penalty enhancement hate crime law looks again at ethnicity, nationality, race, religion, and also at sexual orientation. In Germany, 2 elements of legislation we found relate to hate crimes or potential hate crimes. Section 46 of the German Criminal Code looks at the motives and the aims of the perpetrator, although it's quite subtle in the way in which that relates to hate crime in itself. And in Section 211 of their Criminal Code, it talks about certain elements of hate being an indicator of where something that may initially be tried as a manslaughter could be tried as murder. It shows those elements of intent. What we did find in Germany is that they have a much stronger emphasis on hate speech and incitement rather than the actual crime itself. It's what's taking place even before what they perceive as the crime being considered. There's just a real strong emphasis on hate speech rather than hate crime. Again in Greece, race, religion, nationality, and 2003 it was found that no convictions have been obtained utilising the 1979 hate crime legislation. Again, that's for us to determine whether that's a fault with the actual legislation, or is it the fact that they don't wish to apply it. It's all to build evidence for ourselves. And moving on to Hungary, they appear to sit on the fence with a number of things. They talk about perceived religion, perceived nationality, perceived ethnic origin. What appears to be coming through quite strongly in that is just because somebody looks differently, that is sufficient enough for them to pursue a conviction through the hate crime route. So whilst it talks about religion, nationality, and ethnic origin, most of the commentary is really emphasising how people look and the looking different, and in some cases non-traditional. In Ireland, there's quite a broad sweep again of protected groups, and interestingly, this is where the travelling community are mentioned and first mentioned within the European Union. Whether that's something that I found looking at commentary moving forward, there's certain groups that look like they're likely to be more protected in the future, certain elements of the travelling community. So it seems that Ireland were really at the forefront of those protections. Section 3 of the Italian criminal law looks again predominantly at the race and religion, ethnic and national origin type of categories. Latvia, a little bit out of left field with regards to their criminal law. They talk heavily about women and pregnant women, also about financial dependence. There's elements in other countries about social status, but this just mentions purely financial dependence, and racism, and quite a broad brush of vulnerability. The commentary is a lot about how vulnerability is their kind of catch-all, and it really supports the use of their 2006 regulations to encapsulate the vulnerability aspect. Lithuania have obviously a number of articles within their criminal code that protect it at different levels, but they're largely into age, sex, sexual orientation, disability, race, nationality, language, descent, social status. It's becoming more prevalent, especially in some of the newer European Union countries. Religion and convictions. I had a discussion with a colleague in the law school at UCLan about if vigilantes go and attack a paedophile, and they do it systematically to group a paedophile to another paedophile to another paedophile in vigilante habitat. Is that hate crime? Do we wish to protect against people who have criminal convictions? Luxembourg, again, a very broad sweep. In this we talk about health status, disability, manners, political opinion, philosophical opinion, membership of a trade union, membership of any groups, corporations or communities. It's really broad, quite encapsulating. They encourage people to try and engage with their legislation to bring people in under Article 454 of their criminal code. Moving to Malta, again, back to the common themes of race and religion through their criminal code. In the Netherlands code, look at sexual orientation, race, religion and belief. The Polish criminal code, again, nationality, ethnic origin, but then they talk about the political affiliation, religious affiliation, and also the lack of religious denomination. So, you know, it's a pertinent negative in effect on religion. It's not necessarily that you are religious, it's that you choose not to be in what is perceived to have been quite a religious country. So there's protection across the whole spectrum of religion. In Portugal, again, there's two main articles, but they cover race, religion, political orientation, colour, ethnic origin, nationality, sex and sexual orientation. Romania, as you can see, a number of elements are covered with the Romanian criminal code. Again, we're talking about convictions, which is, to me, is quite interesting. Wealth, social origin, political belonging. So it's much more encompassing than many other European Union nations. Slovakia, again, race, nationality, colour, ethnicity. Just talks about origin. Doesn't say which origin of what it was. It was quite difficult to extrapolate what origin meant in itself, but there was a lot of commentary in some of the things I've read that just talk about origin, gender and religion. Slovenia is the third nation to have no current hate crime provision or laws on their statute books. Spain, as you expect, talks a lot about religion, beliefs, ideology, ethnicity, race, the nationality, gender, also about sexual orientation, illness and disability. So quite a broad brush, but strong emphasis on religion, belief and ideology. The Swedish Penal Code, Article 29, talks explicitly about race, colour, nationality, ethnicity, sexual orientation, religion, and interestingly, other circumstance. Again, it's something for us to investigate further. Fortunately, we have Swedish partners in the project, so we can delve deeper into what may be classed as an other circumstance. Is it designed for a catch-all, or are there certain things that were intended when other circumstance was legislated against? Then we come to the United Kingdom, predominantly England, Wales, and now it's Scotland. We don't have a nice and tidy single piece of legislation that we can draw to, one statute that we can draw to. A lot of UK legislation or a lot of UK cases point to the 2003 Criminal Justice Act and the provisions that are contained therein. But we have in the UK, as most people, but for the benefit of the foreign guests, we have statute law and we also have case law, which is built up on a case-by-case basis, which can sometimes see judges creating law rather than applying the law, which can, in certain circumstances, create precedents that, for some people, muddy the water. For some people, it brings things into an all-encompassing element of hate crime. So for the UK, I think there's a challenge for us here to really pin down how we can best define hate crime within the UK. And on that, we'll move on to Mark to introduce the first presentation.
So what Kieran has done for us is just to give a quick flash across Europe of the different ways in which hate crime law or laws are being constructed. Obviously we've begun to draw some conclusions already within the project about perhaps what that means at the European level within each country, about the way these things are being put together and what the jurisprudence of each country means. But as Kieran said, hold on to your questions in this area until later, because there's not listed on the programme, but in the place of one of our speakers who was unable to make it, we're going to have a kind of broader discussion of these themes later in the afternoon, after we've had the benefit of some of our academic and practitioner experts' thoughts on these topics. But before I introduce Paul to kick off the talks, I just thought it would be useful if we did the usual thing of going around the room to introduce ourselves. Myself and Kieran you already know, but I'll then ask Alka.
Hi, my name is Alka Glett. I studied criminology and psychology at the University of Central Lancashire. Did a master in international criminology in Sheffield, and then I moved on to go back to Germany and started the project for a PhD dissertation at the Max Planck Institute of International and Foreign Criminal Law. And we did a follow-up study on how hate crimes are prosecuted in Germany. So it's our whole title is called Social Construction and Prosecution of Hate Crime in Germany. And so the project just finished, and I'm going to talk a little bit about later how hate crimes are actually defined and policed in Germany.
Hi, my name is David Brax, and I have a PhD in practical philosophy, and I'm on the philosophy side of this project. My background is in moral theory and metaethics, so I've been mainly addressing questions about the foundations of moral concepts and the explanation of morality in general. And I'm currently working on the philosophical aspects of hate crime, to define what hate crime is and to define the moral category of being hate criminal.
Well, good morning. My name is Michael Fiedmüller. I'm a professor at the University of Frankfurt. I'm a psychologist. And the focus of my work, and also I think within this project together with Mark and Christian, is I have a strong focus on aggression prevention at schools in Germany, and also at resiliency of children and of juveniles. So I hope that we can find in this project a way to do something for communities and schools to prevent hate crimes. I'm not so much concerned with the definition.
My name is Caroline Mollis. I'm a research associate also at the Frankfurt University at the Institute of Professional Education. My professional background is a master in education. Right